Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Nova Scotia RCMP are looking for a man said to have fled the scene of a domestic dispute call in Bridgewater after allegedly stabbing a responding officer in the neck. Police responded to a dispute between a couple staying at the Bridgewater Hotel when the man suspected of assault allegedly used a sharp object to attack an officer who has been hospitalized with serious injuries. Residents were warned to stay inside as the manhunt continues. According to the RCMP, Charles Tobias Doucette, an Indigenous man in his early 30s, fled the scene on foot wearing only black shorts. He is wanted for attempted murder of a police officer. The Edmonton CFL team is officially changing its name. They made the announcement during a virtual press conference earlier. APTN's Chris Stewart was there.
Today, after hearing from Inuit, sponsors, and other stakeholders, the team announced that the name no longer fits. Janice Agrios is the board chair.
The name Eskimos meant tough, resilient, never give up. It also meant community and respect. We identified with this name. In recent years, however, we've come to understand the concerns with the name. We know that those who originally named the team did not intend to be disrespectful or derogatory. In fact, the very opposite.
Agrios says that they have been consulting with Inuit for 3 years. Earlier this year, the team stated that they would be keeping the name, but the call to change has grown louder since earlier this year.
Our most recent opinion research shows plainly that views are shifting quickly. People who defended the name only a year ago are less comfortable with it now. Institutions are being renamed around the world. The change to our name is part of a sweeping societal change. Thank you to those members of the Inuit community who spent time sharing their views with us over the past 3 years.
Agrios is hoping the team still attracts new fans.
To those Inuit who told us they loved having a football team called the Eskimos, we hope that we can continue to be your team. To those who were offended by the name, we have heard you and recognize your concerns.
Team President and CEO Chris Presson says that no decision has been made on a new name. The public will have input. But for now, the team will be calling themselves the Edmonton EE. He's hoping to keep their distinctive logo.
I can tell you that we sure love our green and gold and our EE. It's early days, but we hope to keep that iconic logo.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Halifax officials called it a good day for change. Today, City Council passed a motion to follow up on an Indigenous-led task force report, which concluded the controversial name Cornwallis has got to go. Edward Cornwallis, the founder of Halifax, once put a bounty on Mi'kmaq scalps. The recommendation to scrub his name and image from public spaces was one of 20 made by the task force, which began its assessment in 2018. They are calling for better representation of Mi'kmaq history in Halifax public spaces. On Tuesday, all but one Halifax City Councillor voted to adopt the recommendations in principle. Moving forward, Council will issue annual reports to discuss progress on the report's calls to action. This week, 2 city councils in Northern Ontario voted on anti-loitering bylaws that target marginalized communities. Elena McDougall explains.
One city faced a proposed anti-loitering bylaw and another had only begun discussing what a bylaw could do to address safety concerns in the city. Both motions were shut down. Discussion in Thunder Bay went on for over an hour last night, and today Kenora rejected their proposed bylaw 6-1. Anishinaabe Ski Nation Deputy Grand Chief Derek Fox told APTN that he respects the concerns of residents and the work of city councillors, but harming those who would have been hurt by the legacy of residential schools is not the way to go.
Some of those people, they may have ended up on the streets due to that long-standing issue of colonialism and racism, and it's not for us to judge them. It's for us to be compassionate and understand that they have nowhere else to go. If they're homeless, they're there for a reason.
In a statement, Anishinaabe, Aski Nation and Grand Council Treaty 3 opposed the bylaw in Kenora. The Ontario Rights Commission also chimed in, urging City Council in a letter to reject this bylaw, which will likely have a disproportionate impact on vulnerable and homeless people in Kenora, the large majority of whom are Indigenous peoples. Nicholas Blomley is a researcher at the University of Victoria who studies how municipalities use bylaws to address poverty.
A homeless person sitting on the sidewalk begging for change could become an obstruction. So it's a way of, if you like, weaponizing public space, weaponizing law, and using law in ways that have a target marginalized people, but do so in ways that often pass constitutional muster.
Thunder Bay City Council said it's been trying to get to the bottom of homelessness, poverty, and mental health in the city for 14 years. Deputy Grand Chief Fox said he hopes discussion about these issues will include the First Nations upon whose territories those cities are built. He also wonders if and when help from federal and provincial governments might arrive. Elena McDougall, APTN National News, Hamilton.
We want to hear what you think about that loitering issue and the votes. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. Dozens of people marched through the streets of a northern Manitoba city to denounce racial profiling allegedly happening at the local Walmart. The organization representing Northern First Nations says after hearing several accounts from people, they had to take action. Brittany Hobson has more.
Manitoba Kiwitinawi Ogimaganak hosted a march and protest outside the Thompson Walmart Monday afternoon. Dozens of Indigenous people and allies gathered and heard stories of racial profiling at businesses in the northern city.
Racism is alive and well. It's just that people have learned how to hide it, but it's there. So we must confront it. It's not going to go away by just simply hoping it'll go away.
MKO Grand Chief Garrison Satie says he's heard of numerous cases of Indigenous people being mistreated at the retail chain by staff and hired security. He says this can't continue.
In Thompson, it is comprised of 43% Indigenous people, if not more. And they contribute to the economy of Thompson. $3.1 billion has been invested by Indigenous people in the north. So I think that with those numbers, they deserve respect. And they have been racially profiled.
Wayne Constant says he experienced this last month when he tried to shop at the store.
Yeah, a security guard stops me on my tracks as I was entering. Stop, I can't let you in, he said. I can't let you in. You look like a person that drinks.
Constant spoke with a manager and says his concerns were not taken seriously, so he left. That's when he decided to get in touch with MKO, a move he recommends others make in the same situation.
I'm just trying to let people know, if you encounter racial profiling, they have to start documenting and taking it to their leadership. We are hardworking citizens. We pay our taxes. We pay our dues, and we should not stand for anything like that. We should be treated fairly, equal, not below human level.
Constant says he is in the process of filing a human rights complaint. Both Satie and Constant believe changes in hiring practices should be made.
The security that is in place should have Indigenous people working in there. There should be cultural proficiency. There should be cultural sensitivity training in all of these businesses that are established in the north.
Neither Walmart or Impact Security responded to APTN's requests for comment by airtime. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thanks, Brittany. We have to take a break, but coming up, dismal news for the fate of polar bears. First, here's a look at tomorrow's weather for the east and central parts of the country. To the east coast, we've got 24 in rain in St. John's, 29 in sunshine for Halifax. Cartwright, 23 in rain, Kuujjuaq, 17 in some showers. Rouyn-Noranda and Val-d'Or both 21 degrees with some showers. Chibougamau 22 and rain. Sunshine for Ottawa and Toronto 26 and 27 respectively. 23 in Thunder Bay, mostly sunny. Kapuskasing 26, mostly sunny there. 27 for lots of places in northern Manitoba, Puckatawagan, Thompson, God's Lake, Norway House. 26 in Winnipeg with some showers. 28, lots of sunshine in Brandon. 30 in sunshine for Swift Current. 30 and some showers later in Saskatoon. L'Orange, mostly sunny, 25. Uranium City, 20 degrees and some cloud with some showers later. Welcome back. Researchers behind a disturbing environmental study say that most of the world's polar bear population will likely disappear by 2100. Scientists are warning that if greenhouse gas emissions stay on their current trajectory, the polar bear population will be devastated in less than 80 years. It will be in serious danger as soon as 2060. The study, published in Nature Climate Change, found that melting sea ice will lead to starvation and reproductive failure for the species. Salmon returning up the Fraser River are in grave danger due to a massive landslide a year ago, and more action is needed from Ottawa to save them. That's what a parliamentary committee heard in Ottawa today. The Big Bar landslide halted salmon migrations upriver a year ago. A heroic effort ensued. Salmon were taken by land or by helicopter past the obstruction. Greg Witzke testified that multiple fish ladders need to be built, and that a temporary system like this one, which uses a pneumatic tube or a whoosh, has delivered only one fish so far.
System that we have put in place and has successfully put one Chinook over this past weekend. It's the best way we found to get the salmon over the obstruction. We don't plan on using any helicopters last year. That was a very, very tough task last year. The salmon suffered immensely. They were already holding for a month below the slide, and then to be taken in a helicopter ride, which is not normal. They were falling.
Columbia moves into the third stage of its restart plan. First Nations in the vacation hotspot of Tofino on Vancouver Island are reopening businesses and tourist attractions. But as Sarah Connors tells us, some First Nations leaders say it's too soon to be welcoming visitors.
The Tin Wist Resort in Tofino, British Columbia is open for business. The 80-room resort is owned and run by the Tloquit First Nation. It's been closed since the pandemic began in March. Elmer Frank, Tloquit's emergency operations coordinator, says despite the financial hit, the health of the community came first.
There is a lot of fear of the COVID-19, certainly, because of the community and its vulnerability with relation to health concerns and health issues that we face.
But with BC now in stage 3 of its restart plan, the beachside community is slowly opening up, including the Tin Wist Resort. Tofino is a surfer's paradise. It can receive up to 700,000 visitors a year, and Tofino's 3 First Nations all have a stake in its tourism industry. While only Tloquit is resuming its tourism operations in Tofino, all 3 First Nations were involved in the reopening process with the municipality, a step Elmer Frank applauds.
I think that, our community was supportive of it because we had an input, right? We had an input on how things are opening. We have information on how hotels are opening. We have an information of how restaurants are opening. And if in the event that there's concerns with respect to the COVID-19 coming into Tofino, certainly we're going to be addressing that collectively, not just single-handedly.
But not everyone is happy with the decision to reopen.
We just don't think we're ready for third stage, and so that's the reason that we're against the third stage opening.
Judith Sayers is president of the Nuu-chah-nulth Tribal Council, which provides a range of services like healthcare to 14 Nuu-chah-nulth First Nations on Vancouver Island's west coast. Sayers says the decision to reopen was made too soon, and she feels that profit was put before the people.
We have very vulnerable people, elders, those that have health conditions, and it could spread rapidly, and there could be a lot of sickness, and and more. So that's the worst fear, is that, if you're bringing in all the tourists into Ucluelet and Tofino, they bring in the COVID, and it just exposes people more, and it makes it more easy to bring that home.
Sayer says the Nuu-chah-nulth First Nations asked for 4 conditions before the province opened to tourists, like easy access to screening and the capacity to do contact tracing.
They opened up without even fulfilling those conditions, which I think are pretty reasonable.
The BC government says it's looking at ways for faster testing and tracing, but there's no firm plan in place yet. Elmer Frake understands the concerns about opening, but he says there are enough measures in place to keep people safe.
In terms of screening, our community, as you can see behind us, is gated, and it's secure by security guards that, when you come to our community, you're going to be asked all of these series of questions. We do have testing on site in our communities, and in the event that somebody does have a fever, we do have a nurse in our community that lives in our community that would be able to do the testing.
With the number of tourists in Tofino expected to swell in late July and August, the community is now focused on finding the balance of regrowing its economy while keeping its people safe.
We are still taking baby steps. I know that because we're in the hub of a tourism area, it looks like we're getting off the ground running, right? But we certainly are doing it in a manner where we are taking baby steps.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Vancouver.
A new poll by Statistics Canada shows Indigenous people feel harder hit by the COVID-19 pandemic and have less faith in provincial and federal governments to safely reopen when compared to non-Indigenous residents. I spoke earlier with Ian Culbert of the Canadian Public Health Association about the poll findings. So 36% of Indigenous respondents compared to 25% of non-Indigenous respondents had said that the pandemic had a, quote, strong or moderate impact on their ability to pay for essentials, including like rent, bills, food. So with the CERB money so widely available, why do you think that Indigenous people reported feeling the pinch harder than other Canadians?
Well, what the pandemic has done has really shone the spotlight on the differences in living conditions for Canadians across the country. And those who were facing challenges before the pandemic are facing even greater challenges during the pandemic. So it's not surprising that some people who identify as Indigenous, who we know are at the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder, are probably feeling the pinch much worse than non-Indigenous people.
On the topic of safely reopening, Indigenous respondents had the least amount of faith in governments to do that. 50% of Indigenous people compared to 62% of non-Indigenous people felt that the governments would do that wisely. I guess it's not surprising that we don't trust governments, but I guess who should be responsible for making decisions about reopening then?
Well, certainly for communities that have the ability and have autonomy over their geographic area, they certainly should be making those decisions themselves in consultation with public health authorities. But fundamentally, it does come down to those communities to make those decisions for themselves as to how much they open up internally, but also how much they open up to non-Indigenous people coming into their communities.
So what else in this StatsCan poll struck you?
Interestingly, it was not surprising. I think that there's too many reasons why Indigenous people don't necessarily trust government or public health authorities. They have a track record of being lied to and promises not being kept. And I think it's just a continuing sad commentary of how far we still have to go in truth and reconciliation with all of Indigenous peoples.
I thank you for taking the time to chat with us. That's Ian Culbert from the Canadian Public Health Association.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The federal government was in Winnipeg spreading money around for urban and off-reserve Indigenous people. We have those details coming up after break. First, here's the rest of tomorrow's weather forecast for the west and the north. To northern Alberta, we got 25 in Fort McMurray, sunny skies, 24 in Grand Prairie. Edmonton, 25 with some showers, 34 in sunshine for Medicine Hat. 33 and sunny for Penticton, 23 for Vancouver. Prince Rupert, rain and 16 degrees, same with Fort Nelson. Dawson City, 19 with a mix of sun and cloud. Whitehorse, 16 and showers. Wauhee, 18 and showers, same with Fort Simpson. Trout Lake, 20 and cloudy. Colville Lake, 12, mostly sunny. Sachs Harbor, 2 with a mix of sun and cloud. Chesterfield, sunshine and 17 degrees, but some rain and 17 in Repulse Bay. Joe Haven, 14 and sunshine. Resolute, sunny and 13. And Iqaluit, 16 and mostly sunny. Federal Minister of Northern Affairs was in Winnipeg today to say there will be new money to help urban and off-reserve Indigenous people in Manitoba. Our reporter Daryl Stranger was at the funding announcement, and he joins us with more.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Minister of Northern Affairs Dan Vandal was at the Bear Clan office's headquarters earlier this morning.
The federal government will be there to support Indigenous communities in doing what best suits their needs and providing leadership at the local level. And that's what's important about this, is that this is community driven. These are not solutions that are driven from downtown Ottawa, but this is working with volunteers, with organizations, and with people that know what the problems and the solutions are for their communities.
The Bear Clan Patrol in Winnipeg will be getting $250,000, and this money will be used for weekly food deliveries so that people no longer have to go into the Bear Clan offices anymore. The funding will also be used to help maintain the roughly 400 hampers a week that are delivered by the Bear Clan and keep the 4 part-time jobs that were created in an earlier funding announcement. Shanine Robinson DeJarlis is the chairperson of the board of directors of the Bear Clan, and she had this to say about today's announcement.
Not about anything more than respecting our people that might not have enough, being respectful of other lives, of human beings that live in this community. We are a community, and it takes a huge effort of all the people that live here at every level to make sure that we all live a good life and are nourished, our children are fed and safe in this community.
The federal government will also be allocating $8.5 million to 17 other organizations in Manitoba, like the Southern Chiefs organization, who will receive about $800,000. That money will be used mainly for food and rent security. Grand Chief Jerry Daniels touched on why the funding is so important given the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's been very, very important to have a progressive government in place, a partner who will work with us. And that is something we've been very thankful for. We've had to work very hard with our partners, and we continue to develop that. And so this investment is very important at this point in time, with a lot of uncertainty around what is going to be happening in the next few months. But we will be vigilant and resilient, and we will continue to work with our partners, and we'll be thankful for those things that we have.
The other organizations who received funding earlier today will be spending it on care packages for the community, mental health supports, educational supports, and food security. Melissa, back to you in studio.
Well, that is your APTN National News for tonight. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Thanks for joining us. I will leave you with some beautiful shots of gorgeous downtown Victoria, BC. Have a great night.